So it's a traditional Scottish process. What that means is we have the same milling equipment, same fermenters, same mash tuns, same pot stills, but the process, the way you operate the equipment, is special to Jim Swan. He took a traditional Scottish method and he dialed it in to make it a little bit better at each step. So the milling is traditional. It's a traditional grist ratio that he does. That's nothing different there. When we do to the mash tun, he is very adamant about wanting to have a clear wort. Has to be crystal clear wort. That helps with the maturation. And there is some science behind that, which, time permitting, we could talk about, or we can do another occasion. But the clear wort's critical. Then when you go to the fermentation, I said to Jim, I want a second yeast. Everyone in Scotland pretty much uses M1 distiller's yeast. It drives high alcohol. That's what the industry in Scotland's about, high alcohol. M1 distiller's yeast gives you that. I said to Jim, find me a second yeast that will make some natural oils. So those oils will come through into the whiskey and give a creamy, velvety mouthfeel in the whiskey. So that was one collaboration, was a second yeast. Then in the fermentation, the traditional Scottish approach is typically 2-day fermentation, but Jim always wants to do 3 days. And I see it, I see why, because we also are a craft brewery. And when you watch the brewers, when they make craft Canadian beer, they will always have a conditioning period after the fermentation is finished. And that conditioning period, whether it's craft beer or whether it's the 3rd day of fermentation for the whiskey, allows the flavours to develop more fully. It builds up more fruity esters for that 3rd day. It's not fermenting, it's finished fermenting, but it's building, conditioning the flavours. So 3-day fermentation. Then when you come to the stills, Mike Nicholson had come from Diageo, and Diageo typically will have quite a middle cut, if you will, and they will tend to distill a little bit faster. But Jim Swan, his method is both in the wash still and in the spirit still, he will do trickle distillation. It goes very, very slow through the pot stills. So at our scale, if we were running a Diageo process, we could be finished perhaps in 6 hours or 8 hours of distillation. But with the Jim Swan method, we are taking 10 or 12 hours to distill. So you're getting lots of copper contact. And that's critically important, is the copper contact. The final thing that second last thing that Jim brought to the table is in the spirit still, we do the narrowest cut in the entire Scotch industry. No one does a narrower cut than us. And that's a Jim Swan secret. And Jim said, you can't tell people the secret to how narrow, right? So I'm going to tease everyone here.
Okay.
What I can tell you is, we come on with our double distillation method. Spirit will come on 75% or so. If we're doing a big Isla cut, then you might go down to 59% or 60%. If you're doing a middle Diageo cut, you might go to about 65%, but we're higher. We are the narrowest cut in the industry. What that does for you is allows you to collect only the fruitiest volatiles. It leaves the heavy, ugly stuff behind. And that heavy, ugly stuff takes too long to mature. That's why the Scots will take 12 or 15 years before they have something good. But with a Jim Swan method, with the narrow cut, we have literally Waddles bet after 3 or 4 years.